Welcome, and today we're going to be talking about your power archetype. And why is this important? Well, for me, as I've been writing my book the last 3 years, The Tao of Influence, I've realized that we all, when we're little, we come into this earth and we want our needs met. And at first, we get our basic needs met. But as we get to be a little bit older in our youth, we recognize that not everybody wants to supply us with our needs being met every second of the day. And when that happens, we make it mean something about us. And we get insecure and we get fearful that maybe we're not worthy, maybe we're not lovable. And when those beliefs start to form, then what happens is we try to get our needs met in unhealthy ways. And that's where our negative shadow power patterns tend to play out. But we typically also see the light side. So there's a light side and there's a shadow side to all of the archetypes. And so to make it simple, I created 4 archetypes. And they're based off of animal traits. So I'm going to start with the boar, which is, typically my archetype. That's my primary and dominant archetype. And so if you're a boar, power archetype, generally speaking, the positive side is you get things done. You are very by the book in terms of these are the things I have to do today, and I'm going to get them done. You generally tend to be successful in business. You have financial success quite often. And so these are all positive traits of the boar, and people can rely on them because they get things done and they follow through. Now, the shadow traits of the boar are that they can be overly dominating, pushy, aggressive, impatient, all those things. Because for the boar, as a child, they didn't necessarily feel safe. And they felt that in order to get their needs met, they would then have to do everything themselves. So the downside for the boar in business and in life is that they don't really ask for a lot of help, and they try to do everything themselves, and they become exhausted and sometimes even bitter, thinking that people don't want to help them, when in fact it's all based on this childhood wound, and then incorporating all the strength of this power pattern into their life. So then there is the cockatoo. So the cockatoo is a bird that, if you look at the main character trait of a cockatoo, is that it can only survive in terms of having close relationships. In fact, if you buy a cockatoo and you don't talk to it and you just have no relationship with it, that cockatoo will die. So, and it's been proven over and over again. So cockatoos need that. And so if that's your power archetype, the blessing in that is that you are a relationship person. You know how to connect people. You know how to talk to them. You know how to love them. People come to you if they have an issue because they know that you're going to listen, you're going to understand, you're going to provide support. The shadow side of the cockatoo is that because they're so relationship oriented, their whole world tends to revolve around being appreciated, being needed. They're very sensitive to how people act around them, and they take it personally. Everything is taken personally by a cockatoo, okay? Victim mentality, oh, poor me, or a martyr. I'm doing everything for everybody around here and nobody appreciates me. These are all the things that can happen on the shadow side of the cockatoo. So perhaps you can see yourself a little bit in both of those so far. But usually we have one dominant archetype. And the third archetype is an armadillo. And we have a couple of armadillos in my family that I can think of. And armadillos are people who, like the armadillo, protective shell around it. They generally tend to be quiet and reserved, and they back away from life instead of being fully involved in life. So they allow themselves to be a follower by default, even though many armadillos are highly intelligent and they have many great ideas to share. because of childhood wounds, they withdraw and they don't do any of that. So they are very rarely the leader, although they could be the best leader, they choose not to be, and they come back and they let everything around them happen, which is the shadow side of the armadillo. The positive side of the armadillo is that they're less likely to react and more likely to just observe and have a calm response to something. They also tend to be highly intelligent, like I said, so they've got a great deal of wisdom. And as, the most likely to be the hermit, they also have that part of them that they're comfortable being alone. They're not dependent on other people. So there's both the shadow and the light in every archetype. So those are our three so far. We've got the armadillo, we've got the cockatoo, we've got the boar, and finally we have the butterfly. And now the butterfly, one of my favorite archetypes because they're so beautiful. They're so colorful and they light up our lives. And this is very important. We need people who are lovingly charismatic and can come and bring joy to a party or really light up a person's life with a lot of radiance and love. And so butterflies are much like water. They flow with life. They're this beautiful flow of life. They don't get caught up in all the stuff that most of us get caught up in. They don't have all the triggers that the rest of us do. So that's a very positive trait of the butterfly. Now, the downside, the shadow side, can be that they lack commitment. It could be that they lack a stick-to-itness or to follow through on something. They might say to somebody, let's go for coffee. And you just know that will never happen with a butterfly. They have the best of intentions, but the follow-through aspect for a butterfly is not great. So they can get into some conflicts with people like boars who say, you do what you say you're going to do, right? Why aren't you following through? And the butterfly is saying, why can't you go with the flow a little bit more here? And so you can see how different archetypes can create some issues there, some conflicts. And so what I always recommend is start to recognize in yourself, what archetype are you? And can you radiate the power, light power, and go within to deal with the shadow? Now, there's a lot more about this in my book, The Tao of Influence, Ancient Wisdom for Leaders and Entrepreneurs. You can find it at KarenMcGregor.com. And if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and hit the bell for notifications of upcoming videos.